Hey, hey, hey. Hi, everyone. We're glad to see all of you here. My name is Evgeny, and today I'm the host of awesome CV review session on the DrivenCon conference. Here is also Eugene Catella from DrivenCon team who helps me today. So let me say some words about the conference and introduce our speakers. Team DrivenCon is an online conference project in a new format. 1 week intensives with daily Zoom sessions, a community in Slack, and top experts. Team DrivenCon helps people to build a career in IT through acquiring new skills and knowledge from our experts and networking. We are organizing this event for European participants for the first time. So we have decided to start with a small step, 3 days of free meetup with 4 sessions. We record all our sessions so that you can always watch them after the conference. The topic of the particular this session is group CV review. As can be guessed from the name, today the group of our top experts is going to review real EM CVs from our Slack community and provide their best advices how to improve them. Just some simple rules of our conference. Feel free to use Zoom chat if you want to share your opinion. If you want to ask any question, you can do it in Q&A session in the Zoom main menu. We will try to answer them at the end of the session. If we don't have time, we'll move them into our Slack, so don't forget to check it out. And finally, let me introduce our speakers. You should be already familiar with 2 of them. Vivek is lead engineering manager from Meta, and also the founder of SDE Skills Project, which one is non-profit organization that aims at improving efficiency of engineering talent pool in the industry. Let's send virtual greetings and say thanks for coming to Vivek. So applauses in the chat. And here is Vidal with us today. Vidal works as an engineering manager in developer productivity tools at LinkedIn. Vidal is a host of the popular Managers Club's website and podcast, author of the book called The Software Engineering Manager Interview Guide. Many thanks for coming today, and virtual applauses and greetings from our audience, and us too, of course. By the way, Vivek and Vidal led brilliant public EM interview sessions on Monday and Wednesday. If you didn't attend them by any reason, we published the videos in our Slack, so join and watch. Let's go further, and let me introduce Marcela Polášková, Senior Technical Recruiter from Kiwi.com. How can we run the session of group CV review without a real HR specialist here? So many cheerful greetings to Marcela. Thanks for joining. We're extremely happy to see you with us. Okay, and here comes Charity Majors. So founder and CTO of Honeycomb.io, well-known public speaker, author of many articles and database reliability engineering and observability engineering books. Please send all your virtual hearts to her. Charity thanks you for time and ability to jump into the session. So we are practically ready to start. Let me introduce somebody more. It's our main sponsor. It is Quiz.io that creates a modern test management system for development and QA teams. So give it a try. So we're finally here on the final line. Just few words about the session and its format. We have prepared several CVs from our Slack community. Thanks for sharing it. In total, we have 6 for the right moment, and we'll try to review all of them. One by one, our experts will start walking through the CVs, and Eugene will try to put down all action points for our audience. So after the session, we'll share this list and discuss it a little bit at the end of the session. So we may start and make so-called warming up round. Does anybody want to start the first round? So how about starting with Vidal? Are you okay with that?
Sure, I can take resume 1.
Okay,
here, so
good. Let's start.
Let me share my screen here. Resume 1. Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I'm just looking at it like I would like scan this resume. So I like that. I mean, clearly it's a software engineering manager resume, so it seems relevant, right? He's listed, or he or her, I don't know who it is, this person man or woman, has indicated, they recruited and led a team of 15, split into 3 teams, responsible for. So these are like good managerial bullets I see. I like this, that they coached engineers to become managers. I mean, some of this I don't know is really necessary to develop people through one-on-ones. I mean, that to me seems pretty obvious. That's a kind of a key thing that engineering managers do. But I do like that they were able to develop people to become managers. I mean, the one thing, so they have like, what, 7 years experience here, 5.5, 6, 7 years experience, which is good. It would be interesting if it showed anywhere their progression. Like are there different levels of software engineering manager? Did they, that might be interesting to see, because the one thing looking at it might think, well, they, what's been the career progression, right? Did they start there, and 6 or 7 years later, they're kind of still doing the same thing? So that'd be the one, if they had some way to signal their progression. But it seems like a solid experience here. I mean, these all seem like fine managerial bullets, and they recruited, and they facilitated, and they planned, led technical design. So, I mean, overall, I like this. Maybe I would tighten it up a little bit. The resume is 3 pages. Ideally, it's nice if it's like 1 or 2, but that's not too long. It would be nice here at the top. I'm a big fan of LinkedIn, obviously, if there's a link to their LinkedIn profile or something. Otherwise, I'm going to look them up anyway. I'm going to put their name and their company and see if I can find them, because I think, so that would just make it a little easier for me. So I would recommend that. The capitalization throws me off a little bit here in the beginning, why some of these words are capitalized. And so that just throws me off a little bit, the center alignment and the capitalization, but that's a minor thing. Let's see. If they had like some metrics, it would be good. Anything where they could quantify. I mean, they did quantify the number of people they manage, but took something from X to Y, again, to show like some impact. That would be great. Let's see, going down here, then they were a software engineer. Seems to have like experience in web applications. So I was hiring a manager that was to do web applications. This person's background would be relevant. So I do like that they have a background as a software engineer. Generally, that's good. It's not absolutely required, but it's good. I mean, maybe I don't need all this detail on some of these things, because again, I would be hiring them as an engineering manager and not as a front-end engineer. So maybe some of these could be shortened a little bit. But let's see. So yeah, they have a lot of experience as a software engineer. I don't know. I just, because I'm not familiar with where they're from, I don't know what a 2:2 means. This maybe someone in their country would understand what that means. BA in games design, interesting. I mean, overall, I think for screening this resume, I think it's pretty good. I like that they, put a lot of focus here on the software engineering manager part, because that's what they would be screening for. Maybe I'd put some idea again of, was there any progression there? I'd love to see a link to the LinkedIn profile. Maybe this opening block, the centering and the capitalization threw me off a bit, and maybe shorten it down to 2 pages. But otherwise, I think it's pretty good overall. I'll stop there if people have. I'm sure the other panelists, maybe there's other comments on it.
Yeah, sure. If anybody wants to share his or her opinion.
Let me quickly jump in on a few things. I mean, amazing insights there, Vidal. I think agreed with pretty much everything as is. I think one thing I'd double emphasize is actually on the size of the length of the resume. Depending on which country and where, it is recommended or preferred to keep it within 2 sides of a sheet, or even like shrink it to 1, depending on the number of years of experience you have. Quite a few things I see are like, superfluous. For example, you have subheadings around like outline and things like that. You can get rid of those and save some space. One thing I do recommend is that I actually like the skills section somewhere where you can actually aggregate all of them together. So it's not very informative or useful to know that you use PHP 5.7 in this job and 5.8 in the other job or whatever. So you might just want to put that in one place. The only reason why I see skills useful is for application tracking systems where they just do I want people with PHP and SQL experience and people management or something. It shows up. Otherwise, the specifics usually is not as relevant. Specifically for engineering managers, I do expect skills to be transferable more than specific, unless you're looking for domain expertise and whatnot. So skill section, get rid of a lot of these repetitive items that you have, and you'll save a lot of space.
Oh, since you mentioned applicant tracking systems, I mean, no presentation would be complete without saying there are tools where you can run your resume through. There's something like, I think it's like JobScan.io, or there's different tools like this. You can get a job description and then you can run the resume through it, and it can try to match like the keywords and all that. So that's kind of a power tip, they could try if there's specific jobs they're interviewing for.
So sounds good. Eugene, are you capable of putting all this down? Okay.
Of course, I've been writing the whole time.
Yeah, good. So
yeah, the things that I would echo are just, shorter. Keep in mind that most of the people who are going to be reading this are not people, they're bots. And so keywords, as annoying as it is, keywords really matter. A lot of these sentences don't matter. And like somebody said at the beginning, a sign of a narrative of progression is really helpful, right? Like when I started, it was this, when I ended, it was that. You don't want to look like you were somebody who was just keeping the lights on.
okay,
Yeah, exactly.
thank you. So shall we go further or any other ideas right now? Okay, so let's go to the candidate number 2. So Vivek, I remember you wanted to.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
There isn't a sense of what this candidate wants to do. Like, what is it that you're looking to grow at next? Where do you want to go? What is important to you? It's just, here's what I am. And that'll get you a job. But if you're looking for a career, like if you're looking to grow, or if you're looking for something that's a little bit aspirational for you, then you probably want to state or be more clear about here's what I'm looking for, or here's the challenge I'm looking for, here's where I'm looking to go.
Okay, so do you recommend just to put it into the CV somewhere in the upper block? So
Well, the CV is all that I've got to work with here, right? So like if it isn't in the CV, it should be somewhere else.
Okay, makes sense.
Like an objective, right? Some resumes have sections like objective, right?
Yeah. It could also be a cover letter, right? You can send it to somebody saying, here's what it also makes sense sometimes to drop a couple of different versions of your CV, depending on who you're trying to submit it to, right? To maybe emphasize, say, enterprise in one of them, and emphasize your startup skills in another of them, or emphasize your engineering skills versus your management skills or whatever. It's clear to all of us that we only have a very partial set of information here, but from what I have, it doesn't tell me where you want to go.
Okay, cool. So let's move further. Vivek, are you ready to?
Let me go to the second candidate. Let me know if you're able to see the screen.
Yeah.
Yep.
We see.
Excellent. So for this resume, it's actually a couple of good things I noticed right from the beginning is like the font is good. It's a neutral font. Size is pretty good. Just keep it consistent. The layout is okay, but I think you can have a better layout if you use a template. There are enough free application tracking system compatible templates available. Use any of them, and I think you'll do it'll look good and it'll look better. You'll be able to fit more in this. Other thing I noticed is I actually like the fact that the contact information is here. You've got the email. I think as Vidal mentioned earlier, LinkedIn address is there, which is amazing. That's like a professional tool. Don't miss it. Phone number is here. Apparently, what I've heard is that the number one goof that resume has is either they have incorrect or inappropriate contact information. Their email addresses are sometimes wrong, or phone numbers are older ones and things like that. Just pay double the attention to those things. The only thing I may want to consider adding is a city, state, or country to this one, just to help localize, because I know recruiters, at least in US, are generally favor local resumes more than anything else, just for logistics reasons, or they prefer people who are already in US because they usually feel that they are authorized to work if they're already here in US and things like that. So it may help you with your reach if you add that context. In this case, don't know if this person is in US or other countries, and that'll be one thing. Just top down, this resume, as I think Vidal pointed out earlier, is like 3 pages. Not too bad, but one stat that I usually like to share is a typical resume gets an airtime of between 6 to 30 seconds, depending on how lucky you are. So the more content you have, the more you're diluting focus, and you want to keep your resume optimized and distilled to what is important. And a few other things, of course, is why is it so low? Like, why are people not spending more time? Is that there's like 200 plus resumes for each job out there. So the deck is actually stacked against you. And the other number I've heard is the first resume lands in the inbox about like 200 to 300 seconds from the time of posting your job. So with all that, just keep it tight, keep it like 1 sheet of paper if you can, maybe 2, and you should be good. As we go through each section, I can give you some guidance as to why or what you can do differently. Another one is please remember that the resume is a marketing tool. You are the product and you're marketing yourself with this. And there is a difference between like what we used to refer to some resumes as like their career obituaries. It's just talking about I did this, I did this, I did this and whatnot, but not really focusing on the next job. So it's like you think of it as a sales material for you as a product. Now, just like going down section by section, professional summary. By the way, I saw a typo here. Please make sure that you spell check.
That was the first thing that jumped out at me when I saw this. I was just like professional. I couldn't.
I know. Well, not just that, there are like a few other typos that I noticed throughout the resume here and there. There's like, commas are in different places. I saw, for example, here, I think the career was misspelled. And then the other thing actually was like very stark was like Qualcomm is actually misspelled in the skills section. The whole reason for having a skills section is so that it can, when you do find automatic bots of finding, if someone's looking for Qualcomm qualified engineers or managers, this resume will not get picked up because it's not Qualcomm, it's with the 1 M, right? So just make sure that you spell check, double spell check, triple spell check, grammar check. There are enough tools out there. You can just copy the whole thing in a text file and then put it online and just look for spell and grammar fixes, and you'll find it'll definitely serve you good. And of course, doesn't hurt getting it even professionally reviewed if that's like, it's not super expensive, and it's definitely worth getting it perfect in that sense. So one thing is on the professional summary, it's a little too verbose, too big. I would actually, I think we talked about this earlier in today's discussion, is to consider replacing this with like an objective statement, more like your career elevator pitch, which is like, this is me, I'm an engineering manager with over 15 years of experience, with experience in X, Y, and Z, and I'm looking for this particular position in an engineering in telecom adjacent domain or something like that. The only risk of actually an objective statement is that you may be accidentally excluding yourself from other considerations. I mean, if you're not very particular about telecom domain, then by putting it there, you are actually now less favorite for some of the recruiters who are looking at your resume. So be a little careful about what you're including and excluding there, but an objective session could be used to condense all of this. Think of this from the audience perspective, not from your perspective. You would like to say that you worked in North America, Mexico, Canada, and whatever, but that's not what they want to hear. They just want to hear like, oh, do you have like multi-country experiences, all they care about? Then just say that. You don't have to be very specific about like, all the countries and cities that you worked in, because that's not as relevant or as important for the person who's looking at it. Moving down, I think I mentioned this earlier, I love the skills section. This is amazing. It helps with the applicant tracking system. But again, Qualcomm, please make sure, don't do that. That's not very helpful. Dropping version numbers is not bad at all. Like, I've seen people who would say, I worked on C version 7.6 and 7.9. I'm like, I'm not sure if that's as relevant unless it is very important in your particular industry. So that is good. Just moving down. Experience section. This is pretty nice that you have it in reverse chronological order. I have seen two different formats that people have used, which one is like a chronological resume, which is what this is. The other one is usually a functional resume, where you start talking about different roles and different functions that you've held. There's reasons to do one versus the other. See what works best for you. It's primarily a consideration for age. People who have a lot more experiences and are trying to, and they have like a diverse experience. They did something, went to do something else, and they don't have a linear progression. That might be useful, but otherwise, like chronological resume is the one that's by far easiest for any hiring manager or a recruiter to grok. So this is lovely. I like it. Do pay more attention. I think I'm probably beating a dead horse here when I say this. You have to pay attention to things like capitalization. Shanghai, France, India, they have to be capitalized. Follow conventions around spaces, like you put this around commas, like you put space, but no space before the comma, space after the comma, and things like that. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it could do two things. One is it could mess up an applicant tracking system, because they generally look at punctuations and it's just regular expressions and whatnot to search. And the second thing, of course, is that it could be very irritating for recruiters and managers who sometimes get over fixated on this, and they just ascribe this to your personal attention to detail. Not much useful. Like I think there was one more I saw here, like factory releases suing couriers concept. I'm assuming this was using. So things like that, like just pay attention overall in the resume. Then another one as such is that I understand this first block of text, which is almost like a page long, is about 9 years of experience in total. So I'd like to, as Vidal suggested earlier, you may want to show progression in some ways, like, were you a manager first and then became a senior manager? You may want to break it out into two and then explain that, because that way it's easier to see career progression in this case. The other one is, of course, see if you can condense this whole thing into 4 or 5 like top items. Like, what is it that you want to convey? And strength. Some of these things are obvious. Like in the last resume, we saw one-on-ones. Having one-on-ones is like table stakes for a manager. So don't bother including that, but look at things that are very specific that helps you stand out. If you're not familiar with it, use this thing called XYZ formula that Google recommends. It goes with saying accomplished X as measured by Y by doing Z. And that essentially leads with your accomplishment, then leads with metrics, like follows with metrics, and then finally closes it out with like how you did that. And that's very captivating, because as a hiring manager or a recruiter, when I'm reading through these bullet points, I'm like, I delivered like this many $1 million in sales. I'm like, that's a hook. So I got to look at what did you do? And then you talk about exactly what you did and how, and then I can easily visualize you being a part of my team and replicating that success in my team. And it's a very powerful mechanism. The other rule that I'm going to talk about is the 5-5-2 rule, which is essentially your entire experience section, no more than 5 sections, maximum 5 bullets each, and no more than 2 lines per bullet. And maximize that. Trim things that are unnecessary. Again, look at it from a audience perspective, or who's the customer of this content perspective, and use that. Another minor thing here is like, tense. What tense would you use? Is I generally like past tense, because it's accomplishments and achievements. So you would not say drive or leading or hiring. You would actually say hired, and you would say like, drove. Generally use past tense. And if you can search for like, resume action verbs, there's like lists with like 50, 60, 100 words which are there. Instead of the boring led, driven, and whatnot, it'll have things like, initiated, founded, a whole bunch of other fancy words, which mean roughly the same thing, but maybe more precise. And it also makes the resume stand out a little bit more. Key thing, focus on accomplishments and not responsibilities. I think you have done that for most part. But for example, things like grooming sprint backlog and sprint retrospect and achievement of product milestones seems more like a responsibility, not an accomplishment. The focus should be on your accomplishments and achievements. And if you use the XYZ format, you will see that you will struggle to represent responsibilities in that format. So it's a much easier filter to remove responsibilities and only keep accomplishments. Like I'm almost at the end of my review. The sections that are older, like Mindtree, Work, IBM, and Satyam, these are fairly far back in the past and not as relevant to the current experience. So I would just shrink it, either leave out or make it into like a pre-2009 sections can be just one sentence about like, developer in this particular thing in this domain or something like that, and just leave it at that. Qualification section, you could call it education. That's what I've seen normally. And what you have here is degrees. So probably education, because sometimes people do look for it. Specific jobs have like a minimum bachelor's requirement. So they look for education section. If it's not there, it makes it difficult. Like they just do a Command F or Control F education. So just fix that. Normally, when you do grades, you may want to do a denominator to make sure that it's standard. Like, is it a 4.0 scale or something else? Seems like it's 4.0 based on the number, but a little unclear. And last one, of course, is again, in the interest of trimming all the fat that is not necessary. I'm actually not sure if a software engineer participation certificate and agile training participation actually has as much impact. I think it actually brings the average down of your resume overall from an impact perspective. So go through each word, each sentence, each phrase with like a fine-tooth comb, and then you just figure out which ones actually is adding or increasing the average or impact of your resume or reducing it. Because if I spend 1 second reading this, that's about 1/6 of the time I have allocated for your resume. So not good. With that, I'll pause here and see what others have to say.
There were so
Back to
many
you.
details, so I tried to bend my fingers just to keep them all in my head, but there are only 2 fingers on my 2 hands. So I hope that Eugene put them all down. So thank you.
I think I noted most of what Vivek said. I hope so.
Okay. Okay, that was great.
I would just add there. I think you got it, Vivek. You tremendously great points. I love the things you called out. Yeah, I'm one of those engineering managers that if I saw a resume like this with typos, I would just discard it. I would discard it, because if that's it, just to me indicates just bad. It's a bad signal. So it's actually critical to fix all the typos and capitalization errors.
It shows that you care about the details.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they couldn't do that, you couldn't produce it here. For me, that's just such a huge negative signal. I would just put it in the discard bin. So it's very important to fix. Very important to fix, and it's not hard to fix. And if English is not your first language, maybe it's not their first language as a person, ask someone whose English is their first language to review it for you.
Yeah.
So thanks you for reading that. Eugene, please highlight this line with the red brush. Okay. And I think we can move further to the third CV. So Charity or Marcela, who want to start? So any of you would be great.
Sure. I guess I'm up for candidate 3. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. Let me share the screen.
Yeah.
So you can see it, right? So when I'm looking at a CV, I'm never looking at it generically, right? I have something in mind. I have a job in mind that I'm looking at them for. So the first thing I'm looking at for is like, is this person wanting to work at a job that looks like the job that I am hiring for? Which is why, I said a couple times already, like, what are they looking for? Like, I really want to see at the top or in an introduction email, here's what this person wants. Because, and I may be unlike a lot of hiring managers in this sense, but, a lot of hiring managers out there are always looking for somebody who has already done the job that they're hiring for, right? They're looking to hire a software engineering manager who has done, XYZ, Golang, whatever. They wanted to hire someone who's done all those things before. I don't. I want to hire people who want to learn and grow. I don't want to hire people who want to do the same thing over and over again. So I'm always looking for, what is aspirational for them? How do they want to grow? How do they want to develop? And does that look like the job that I have to offer them? The summary is still a strong full stack and backend experience, focusing on minding out of job positions, customer happiness. I don't actually understand what that means. and this is me revealing my, English language centricness. If you're applying to, for a company that isn't American, this probably doesn't matter as much. But just like the previous person was saying, if you're applying for an English language company, get a read over by an English language, first friend, because some of these things just don't make a lot of sense. Encouraging a facility open-minded team is good. Yeah, like I kind of get the gist of that, but it doesn't sound native. Again, this may matter, it may not. And I also echo the thing that that I think it was Vidal was saying about how you should add your location, like where is it that you work out of and where is it that you want to work out of, right? Data engineer, tech lead, Moscow, Tbilisi, Python developer. So what I like about this resume is that it is brief. I tend to think that no matter how accomplished you are, 2 pages is enough. I don't want to see any 3, 4, 5 page resumes. What that tells me is not that people are great. It tells me that they're fishing for anything that they can possibly add to their resume. And that tells me that it's very low signal. And I want high signal resumes. I want resumes that just tell me the most relevant work that you've done, the technologies that you know, and I want to sense the trajectory that you're on, right? Where you're going in your career. I don't want to know every single organization that you've ever belonged to. I don't want to know your grades coming out of college unless this is your first job out of college. I might want to know what languages you speak, but so this is a good, it's succinct. It's not too long. Tells me what your degree was. That's great. Your technical strengths. I might move technical strengths up to the top, because again, remember that most of the people that read your resume are not going to be people; they're going to be robots. So they're looking for keywords, and then once you've gotten through the robots and you've gotten to a human, the human is looking for narrative. So what this resume tells me is Russian language speaker, English. I don't know what B2 means. Does anyone else? Is that like a grading or a categorization for a?
I think it's something typical in Europe, that it's like basic knowledge or able to communicate.
Okay.
I would say.
Well, that's probably really great context for people who are not me then, but I don't understand what it means. Tells me what your primary stack is, your secondary stack. I love this section of technical strengths. Like he or she, whoever it is not it's not a laundry list. It's not everything they've ever touched. It's not everything they've ever seen anyone use. You can tell when people are just packing it in, right? No, it's very upfront. Like, this is what I'm good at, and this is what I've some experience at. Databases and brokers, like this is really good. When it comes to management, I'm not sure what that means. And again, this is probably partly language, and this is probably partly just it doesn't tell me whether or not you're looking to grow as a manager, or whether you're just here are some tech lead skills that I've amassed. So that's a question I would have as soon as I started talking to you in person. As far as the trajectory of your career, it looks like, you started as a entry-level dev. You stayed 1.5 years. That's great. You stayed for 3 years at your next software job, 2 years at your next, 22. I mean, this shows me that you got really interested into AI, I guess, and data stuff. You're still you're at the phase of your career where you're probably getting senior titles, but I think of you as strongly intermediate. You've been in the industry for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, maybe I tend to think that people are approaching senior level when they're at the 7 to 8 year level. 7 to 8 years duration. It's interesting to me that you went heavy into AI, and then you switched to go into what sounds like a very data heavy stack. So my next question for you would be what do you love? What about, is this just like a convenience, or are you more interested in data jobs, or are you more interested in AI jobs? Where are you interested in going with this? Because part of it is, what kind of jobs can you get? And part of it is, what kind of jobs will you love? And I believe that people will always do a better job if they're doing something that they really love. So I guess the other thing that that I look at is, let me see, going from back to front. Something that I do like about this is it seems like you have gone back and revised everything as you've made your, sometimes what I see is people will write the description of what they did for their first job, and then they'll do it like an append only thing, right? And then they write their description for everything they did for their second job, then write description for everything. And that ends up just looking like a pile of crap, right? Because it's it's always so detailed for the job that you just did, right? But as those jobs get further and further in the rearview mirror, they should become compacted, right? They should become much more of a summary and just a few details to give the shape of it. So that's good. And I don't think it's too wordy. I think that you do a good job of calling out your lead, not just what you did, but what you, not just what you did, but what you accomplished. Although for your most recent job, I'm kind of like, okay, achieved astonishing reliability SLA goals. Well, what does astonishing mean? That to me smells a little bit of bullshit. Negotiation and contracting with ClickHouse Tech Consulting. Okay, that's great that you did that, but what did you accomplish? Like, what did you bargain down the amount of money that you saved? Or, you know, this doesn't tell me anything about how good you did at the job. It just tells me that you did the job, right? Integration testing minus half an hour of developer's handwork per task. This sounds like it's probably something really impressive, but I can't tell what it means. So, you know, maybe English language gloss or just rewording that would be better. Made HTTP script. Okay, so this is actually a good list of things where it seems like you probably did a good job, but all I can tell is that the things that you did, right? All I can see is what you spent your time on. I can't see what the output was. And as you're a junior and mid-level engineer, like that's fine. They just want to know what you're spending your time on. But as you become more of a senior engineer or a lead engineer or a manager, what people are going to care about are your achievements. Like how did the world change because you were in that seat versus someone else being in that seat? So like, you know, what this might read as is, went from a SLA of, you know, 93.5 to 99.5, while continuing to ship, you know, cutting edge data, you know, something warehouse products. Negotiated down our ClickHouse consulting contract by 30%, based off what the prior, you know, version was. Integration testing, saved, you know, saved a collective, you know, some percentage of work, like less than the amount of work that all developers had to do by like 30%, saving a cumulative, you know, 3,000 developer hours per quarter, you know, something like that, that shows actual outcomes, actual differences, actual numbers you can then discuss about. Otherwise, you're just telling me what the work that you did, and you're not telling me anything about the results or how good you were at it. So that's my, and the thing is, it's ironic because further down, you do use some of those things. You do get specific, like developer, you know, 100 RPS and small VPS, like that's cool. We can have a conversation about that, right? Made possible regular weekly releases with higher quality, you know, fewer bugs per month. So it's clear that you know how to do this. You just didn't do it for your most recent job experience. The other question I have is because you start to mention manager stuff. My question is, do you want to become a manager, or are you just listing these skills because you want to keep being a tech lead and you want to grow as a tech lead? So that's about it. Others?
I mean, I have some things I can add, but I don't want to monopolize it if other people have stuff. I mean, I agree with, you know, everything that you said, Charity. There's two other things I would add is I would see if you're applying for engineering manager position here, I would kind of focus it a little more on that. So for example, in the summary, it starts with, this is a strong full stack and backend developer. Okay. I might start with, you know, I'm a tech lead. Okay. For, you know, backend developers, right?
Well, they have actually managed a team of 4, but I'm not clear on whether or not they're looking for a manager role or not.
Well, I'm assuming, yeah.
They
No, but I'm assuming here, right? This is engineering manager resume review, right? That we're doing.
Oh, is
right?
it? Oh, I thought it was number 6 that was it.
Oh, is it just regular engineer?
We don't know right for the moment. So it's just a CV we have, and we are making an engineering manager CV review. So yeah.
Oh, so it is for engineering manager. So if it's for an engineering manager, then I would
then
I would focus the content around that. Because if I read this, it's okay, this would be someone I might want to hire to be a backend developer. But if I want to hire them to be an engineering manager, then if I were them, I would try to put that stuff more forward. So for example, on the very first block here on the data engineer tech lead at this company, I would reverse it, be like tech lead for data engineers. And you see the 5 bullets. The first bullet I would put is manage a team of 4 middle developers, right? Because that's kind of putting the emphasis on the tech lead and the managing, where it seems here the emphasis is a little bit more on the tech part.
Or even, went from, if you were hired as, data engineer, and then, within 22 months, you were assigned, now you're managing 4 developers, that's even better because it shows the trajectory that you went on in under 2 years, right? That they saw you as management material, that they gave you developers to manage, and that you're prospering, right? I completely agree with putting it front and center. And then also like coming up with what are some things that you have achieved as a team with those 4 developers, not just your personal achievements, right? Like what are things that, because as a manager, you're increasingly going to be valued, not based on what you yourself can do, but what you can motivate and inspire teams to do. So it's totally legit to count accomplishments that you and your 4 developers achieved as a team.
Right. Yes, I agree. But I think, to my point, like you have the content here that you were manage these 4 developers. I would put that first because that gives me the impression that that's what was important to you, and that's maybe where you want to go, as opposed to putting it last, which just gives me a whole different impact to me.
Even the title of your role, data engineer, tech lead / manager.
Right. Exactly. The other comment I have is in each of these blocks, there's a fairly long description of the company itself, right? So here it talks about this company is an international company that develops these things, and they were founded in Germany in 2009, and they have headquarters here and all that. I mean, that just doesn't seem really beneficial. Also, then on the next one, it talks a lot about the company. Then there's a block that talks about Yandex and, that it went on the NASDAQ. These I don't think really help. I would just put the name of the company and someone can look up what is this company if they're not familiar with it or something short. I just think there's too much discussion about these companies, which is not really it's not a good use of space.
You want to forecast, you want to show off your accomplishments. And if you were a senior, like a C-level or a VP or whatever of this company, then those would be your accomplishments. And as it is, they aren't super relevant to your accomplishments that you want to spotlight.
Correct. Yes. I mean, unless you were the person that took this company public or founded it or opened the office, that stuff's not really relevant to your accomplishments. So I would just strike those paragraphs. Would be my other, big advice.
How do you think, if I'm not sure what position I'd like to choose, I mean, a developer one, a tech lead, or an engineering manager?
Twice.
Sorry?
Submit twice. They usually have different hiring managers anyway, and they often have different recs up on the website. Like we see this all the time at Honeycomb. We'll put up different, we're hiring for a manager, we're hiring for an engineer, and lots of times people will submit for both, and that's great. It's okay. Much better than submitting for one and saying, oh, I also care about that. Like, don't do that. Just submit separately for each of them.
Okay. So I should have 2 CVs for different positions and not a universal one for all the.
It depends. It depends. You can have different cover letters and the same CV. It's better if you take the time to make a slightly different resume for each position, but that matters more the more different and distinct those are, right? For someone who's been a data engineer, like senior tech lead / small time manager, I think you can get away with just one, but the more different they are, the more you really need to apply for both separately.
Okay, got it. Yeah, thank you.
One thing I just want to add to this is that I saw a GitHub profile for a manager, not as relevant, definitely super relevant for an engineer. So I think it just felt like this resume was a little confused in terms of what the target looked like. So again, this is a marketing tool. Focus on your audience. If the audience is a hiring manager who's hiring,
I don't know that that's super helpful to say because developers aren't great at marketing or sales.
So this is a marketing tool. Think of it as that. So this is like a sales brochure for you. Highlight your salient points that the
yeah, but if I'm an engineer and you're telling me this is a sales brochure for me, I feel like I now know less about what to do than before.
Fair enough. The key, when I say it's a sales brochure, all I'm saying is that focus on the audience, give them what they need to make a decision whether they want to hire you or not. Don't focus it from your perspective. So this is not a material that actually is touting what you feel good about, but it's actually what they care about. So it's always from the recipient's.
What I think I'm hearing you say is decouple your sense of self from your CV. It's just a tool. We can get it really attached to these documents that, say all these things about who we are and where we've been and what we've done. That's good for us, but that's not what you need to give people in order to, like you said, from their perspective, what makes you the best for this job. Those are very different. Write this one, if you will, if you want to for yourself, but think about it differently when you're actually applying for a job, because those can be very different documents.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? Marcela?
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe add to this. I think it really depends also about the company you're applying, because in some companies, I believe they are even interested in GitHub, even you're applying for engineering roles, because sometimes, engineering manager role, because sometimes depends who is going through the process. Me as a recruiter, for me, is not, of course, like relevant to check your GitHub, but maybe sometimes it's nice. And also what you were mentioning, that it's nice to always like a little bit check the position you're applying and your CV, and maybe like a little bit update it up to the position. I would be also really careful with the updates, because really often happening that the people updating too much the CVs, and then you click to LinkedIn and you see absolutely different background. So maybe if you are updating, keep updated also your LinkedIn, or just change a little bit the things, because then it looks also quite shady when you have two different CV and different LinkedIn or profile.
Two different LinkedIn profiles?
No, if you have too much different CV to LinkedIn profile, that you update too much the CV to look good for the company and to be too much fit.
Well, I'm kind of a fan of keeping LinkedIn to be just the facts, right? Just the facts, where you worked, what you did, and then you can flesh them out in your CV to say more about it if you want to. But you're right, they shouldn't diverge too much, but there should be space. Everybody understands, especially to get more senior in your career, everyone should understand that you need different narratives for slightly different jobs and having them both be true. Yeah, I think.
Okay, thanks for so many action points that we might put down. I hope Eugene is still capable of doing it. So
yeah, I'm writing notes, and with the other hand, I'm fixing my LinkedIn profile.
Love your shirt, by the way. Can you sit up a little bit more so we can see it? Nice, nice, very nice.
Thanks.
Okay, so I think we need to walk through one more CV, and after it, maybe make the final stage about seeing what awesome details Eugene put down during the session. So Marcela, let's switch to the fourth CV.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we see the screen. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So, well, from the very first moment when I see the CV, there is a lot of things going to my mind. Even it's short, it's just 2 pages. I would say that first of all is the formatting of the CV. Like here, you see like absolutely different sizing of the experience sizing. Then I scroll down, and it's again going to smaller size. So that's the first thing.
Marcel, sorry to interrupt you. Could you please just zoom in a little? I think that maybe
for sure.
I can see the text. Okay, yeah, thank you.
No, okay. so yeah, there is like different size than here, and then when we it's again different. The next point, okay, there is the personal summary. That's nice. You can read a little bit more about the person. But really big thing and behind all it is that I don't know if it was copied from some other template or the person took it from some other source. But you can see that there is missing a lot of space between the words. There is missing a lot of function and other format things. So that's the first thing I would be really focused, mostly if this should be senior person with 13 years of experience. The next point, what is taking my attention is that the person starting to explaining the experience, but it's connected with the company, I guess, in the first line. And the person also like putting twice the duration of the experience, which for me is absolutely unnecessarily. And when we scroll down, it's again repeating here. So this I would just delete and keep it once. Also, if we see or if we compare the experience, I see that there is different template or different part of this experience and this experience, which looks a little bit strange, again, for the experienced person. For me, as a recruiter who needs to like really fast to go through the CV, it's quite long description. I would absolutely make it shorter. I understand that maybe the person worked there a really long time, so like has a lot to say, has a lot to share, but it's just a little bit too much and maybe could be divided, because from this I don't understand if the person was all these year engineering manager, or again the person grow in the company, or what happened. And also what I was reading about the informations, some points are not so much like important for me. I don't know, like when we read from the start, it's nice that the person was creating positive working environment, but for me as recruiter, it doesn't mean, you know, anything. And I would like to see maybe more of like real experience, which projects the person was managing, what was the stakeholder management behind, how many people was the person leading, and other things about the projects. So that's the first thing. Then when we move down, I would say that there is also a lot of information, but it's not so much relevant for engineering manager, because here the person was developer, so maybe could be also shorter, mostly when it's divided to two separate experience in the same company. Also, what is a little bit maybe confusing for me, that the person joined as team lead and then just switch to architect or developer. So that's next point. I would like to see maybe more about the person, why it happened, and what was the background of it. And here just about the education. I think that it's okay, like it's really short. Maybe it's not needed to put any percentage when it's like electrical engineering and is not connected with the real software engineering, or I don't know what is behind this education. So maybe I would like to see if the person has some background in management or has some background in engineering regarding some courses or certificates. Would be nice to see. And again, missing the LinkedIn profile would be nice to have it in the CV. So I guess mostly that.
Okay, sounds great. Does anybody want to add something? Or during the previous CVs, we have already passed through the all lines we want to add. So it's an hour right from the start of our session, and we have passed already the 4 CVs. So that was the basic plan, and we successfully managed to accomplish it. Thanks to all of you. I think that it would be great just to stop here and maybe to make some final lines from Eugene and from everything he put down during the session, to make like a summary of the session, maybe some bunch of great advices.
Yeah, actually, I've written down all that you said during the session, so it would take some extra hour to just read it for me, but I'll try to be short. So what I actually
You're
have
like
written
a
down.
transcriptor.
Yeah, I have a transcript, and actually, I think after this session, we'll. I think I'll just clean it up from some mess because I've been typing really fast, and we'll share it to the Slack channel, so everyone who wants to check their CV against these bullets would be able to do that. So I think I'll start with the really great piece of advice from Vivek, that you need to think of your CV as a marketing tool. That's a great idea. I think I really can relate to that. So first of all, I think you need to make clear what's the goal of your CV, what you're trying to achieve, and what position are you trying to apply to. And this actually is the main idea. And from your experience, it should be really the person who wants to hire you need to be able to read clearly what you achieved, what was your career progression, and how did you get to the point where you are currently, and why you're looking for your next step. And CV must help in that. Also, of course, you need to pay attention to the clarity of your resume. So you definitely need to avoid some like messed up formatting, some different fonts, different styles. Probably if you use Comic Sans, you need to use it everywhere or nowhere in the resume. Just use one font and one kind of style for every block in your resume. Also, we've spoken about the length, and I think we agreed on that having 1 or 2 pages is like an optimal size of your CV. Probably 3 isn't too much, but I think you can, having 1 or 2 would be just great. And I think one more important thing about management position is that you need to have quantified metrics for any impact you was able to achieve. Because usually when you're a manager, it's like, we did that, we've been doing this, I've been managing people, I've been having one-on-one meetings. It's kind of obvious you need to have some results. And another stuff I think we repeated like twice during the session is that probably you don't want to keep some really obvious information in your CV, like that you've been conducting one-on-one meetings. I think most of the people who are engineering managers are doing this, so there is no new information for the person who wants to hire you. Well, I think that's like the really biggest points I've written down. There's a lot of smaller things, but I think we'll share it in a Google Doc later. Or if I forgot something really important, feel free to add it up.
I remember the advice to group all your skills into one section, and it's pretty important for somebody who is looking for a particular skill to find it quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I just thought that I should make my description in LinkedIn profile a little bit more compact because there are too many details about the previous experience that is not relevant. And also I understood that I have a LinkedIn profile that is not dedicated to engineering manager position or some tech lead. So it's all mixed up. And I put all the things I have done during my career there, but maybe that is okay. So maybe just 5 minutes we have, maybe we talk a little bit about LinkedIn. Maybe there are some special advices that you can give about it. So we just talked about it a little, that it should be posted in the CV and you should have a link to the LinkedIn, but we didn't discuss the details, what should be inside your LinkedIn profile. So if somebody wants to add some things, that is the right time to do it.
You want me to take that?
Oh, sorry.
You want to talk a little about what should be on your LinkedIn profile?
Yeah. I'm just a little bit ashamed to put my link to the LinkedIn profile. So let it be an abstract LinkedIn profile of somebody you see and what key details you want to see there.
Yeah, so you should use it. This is how people search, right? Recruiters search a lot on LinkedIn. So you want to, have those experiences, those keywords. You don't need to have all the detail though, right? So it's like, so they can find you, okay, is very important. Have it up to date. It's nice if you have a picture, but I understand that also can lead to certain bias too, but most LinkedIn profiles have a picture and their location and these kind of things, which is useful. But yeah, you don't have to have like some of this detail that is in the resume. You don't have to have there. So again, the main purpose there is, to help recruiters find you, right? And, from the LinkedIn profile, then you create the resume, which is a more detailed 2-page document, I would say. Does that kind of help?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, maybe should I use my LinkedIn like a social network and post some things like, hey, I did some awesome project here, I made a public talk there, and so on.
Yeah, those are good. Yes, it's a professional social network. So yes, if you've posted stuff, if you have connections, people there can endorse you. You can get recommendations from previous coworkers, explore connections. That's good, Like you should have a profile, especially if you're a senior person, that has a bunch of connections and you've posted some stuff. Like it looks better, right? Than if I go and the profile is like not filled out and it's empty and doesn't have any connections.
Okay.
Right?
I think I know what we should do. We should make the LinkedIn group review session on the next DrivenCon conference, because I think that is quite a big topic to talk about. And
totally.
Yeah.
I think a couple of quick things here. So there are two portions of LinkedIn, right? One is essentially your profile, which essentially is sort of the CV replacement to some extent. And there's like a tons of tips that you can find about that. And just like how we did resume review today, doing a profile review is actually quite meaningful. People miss some basic things, like you can customize your profile URL, for example. Instead of it being like XYZPQ or whatever, you can just make it change, like, engineering manager -Eugene or something like that, and it'll be more meaningful. Your profile photograph actually, unfortunately, means more than what it means. So keep it professional. You could probably get some tips on picking that. There are actually tools that will let you upload your photograph and give you a score. Like, you're not smiling enough, your eyes are squinting, or like, it's not well lit, the contrast is bad and things like that. So if you look at a lot of the professional photographs in the CV, in the LinkedIn, you would see they're like similar, like, looking off center, eyes are in a particular location and whatnot. Makes total sense. LinkedIn has actually given you tons and tons of tools around how you can highlight your own things. Like they have cover stories, you can mark yourself as open to specific jobs, you can pin specific things, like there are skills, you can add 50 of them, you can pin a few of those skills, you can put a headline, you can customize your current position. There's like a lot of things you can do which actually make it more, if I look at somebody's LinkedIn profile, it's just like gives me in a snapshot like a good feel of what this person is looking for, and I have like an instinctive sense of like, yep, this is like someone I'd like to dig in a little bit more. And again, just like resumes get 6 seconds at a time, probably a profile block only gets like a second or two. So you need to grab that attention if you want to get more. So it's more again like this is more like an advertisement as opposed to a brochure. So it's a little different. I know folks are not ad marketers, so they may not know much about it. But the intention here is that you only have very little time to get their attention. But lots of yes, I would definitely +1 on the idea of having like a LinkedIn profile review, and there's like tons of material out there which talk about where people claim they've done A/B testing and experiments on what should work and what shouldn't work, and things like that. There are like very simple, don't do this ever kind of tips there, and a few things like, you don't want to put your like political statements in LinkedIn at all. I mean, you may feel very strongly about them, but it's probably better left for other social networks, not for like a professional social network, for example. So small things there, and totally up to you in terms of how you use the profile part of your LinkedIn. And then there's the activity part of your LinkedIn, which is more around engagements, more around comments, likes, posts, and things like that. Building your own influence, but that's a complete like whole new ball game there. That's all I have.
If I could add one more thing too. Yeah. So think of it as like inbound, right? The LinkedIn profile is kind of the inbound funnel, right? Where people are going to find you. And LinkedIn also has a feature, a lot of people don't know, it can actually make a resume for you. So being completely not mentioning this, if you put your information in there, it'll generate a nicely formatted resume that will be scanned by ATS systems. And then you can get this document. Then you could add more detail into it. You could add more of these specifics into it, but it's a great starting point.
Yeah, that is a nice feature. I used it previously. Yeah, that saved me a lot of time of preparing the CV with my hands. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Yeah, it might have helped a couple of these resumes because the template is very clean, that it generates.
Okay, Eugene, please put it into the notes.
Sure, already done.
Yeah, okay, so I think that is the perfect time to stop our recording and this session. Thanks you all for joining us. That was an awesome, great session. I think that each of us got a lot of things to think over. Personally, me, a lot of things. I know how to improve my LinkedIn profile, my CV, and will surely use it in future. So once more, thank you all, and see you on the next seasons of DrivenCon conference. And I stop the recording now.
Yep.